All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a Linux command that, most people kind of glance over, but I'm telling you, it's secretly one of the most powerful tools a sysadmin can have. We're talking about the file command. And this isn't just about figuring out what a file is, it's about troubleshooting way faster, writing smarter scripts, and yeah, absolutely crushing that next technical interview. So check this out. Imagine a user uploads a file, report.jpg, to your server. Your app is all set to handle an image. But is it really a picture? What if it's actually a malicious script, just dressed up with a .jpg at the end? If you just trust that file name, you could be looking at a system crash or, way worse, a major security breach. And this, right here, is where our whole story really gets started. And that leads us straight to the number one problem. File extensions can be, and often are, totally deceptive. In the Linux world, a file's name can tell you a completely different story from what's actually inside. That's right. See, unlike some other operating systems, Linux just doesn't care about file extensions. That .jpg or .txt or .sh, it's just part of the name. It's a nice little label for us humans, but the system itself couldn't care less. Trusting it without checking is a classic rookie mistake, and it can really come back to bite you. So, if the file name is a lie, what do we trust? Well, this is where our tool for the day comes in. Let me introduce you to the file command. It's basically a truth detector for your terminal. The way the file command works is actually pretty brilliant. It completely ignores the name. Instead, it takes a quick peek inside the file's data, right at the beginning, at its header. It looks for these unique little signatures called magic numbers that tell it exactly what kind of file it's dealing with. It trusts the actual data, not the label somebody slapped on it. And the difference? It's night and day. You might guess report.jpg is a photo, but file tells you the hard fact. Nope, it's just a plain text file. And that data.zip you were about to unzip? Turns out it's an executable shell script. That's a huge red flag, and exactly the kind of thing you need to catch. And you know what the best part is? It is so easy to use. The basic syntax is just file, and then whatever file you're curious about. That's it. Simple, clean, and incredibly powerful. Okay, so let's get practical. Let's talk about how this becomes part of your actual daily work. This isn't just some neat trick. It's a tool you're going to be reaching for all the time. So let's say you're writing a script. A lot of the time, you don't want the file name in the output. It's just noise. You just want to know the file type. Well, that's what the -b or brief option is for. It gives you just the description, nice and clean, which is perfect for plugging into your automation logic. Now, if you're dealing with a web server, this one's a game changer. The I flag gives you the file's MIME type. This is the exact format that web browsers use to figure out what to do with a file. Using this makes sure your server tells the browser, hey, this is a PDF, so open it, or this is a text file, so display it. It prevents a ton of headaches. So just think about your workflow. You can quickly check a single file, no problem. Or, and I love this one for saving time, you can just type file* to check every single file in a directory at once. And of course, it's your absolute go-to whenever a file just isn't acting the way you think it should. And speaking of troubleshooting, this is where the file command really proves its worth. It's often the very first step to solving some of those really weird, frustrating errors that make you want to pull your hair out. Okay, first up, a classic. You run file on something and you get permission denied. Now, that's not an error with the command itself. It's actually a huge clue. It's telling you that your user doesn't have permission to even look inside that file, which is critical information. And the fix is pretty standard stuff for any sysadmin. First, you confirm what's going on by using ls-l to check the permissions. You'll probably see it's owned by root or someone else. So you just run the command again, but this time with sudo to elevate your privileges. And bam, problem solved. All right, now for a sneakier one. You've got a script that keeps choking on a CSV file. You open it up and everything looks perfectly fine. But then you run file on it and it reveals the culprit. ASCII text with CRLF line terminators. Ah, those are Windows line endings. Linux scripts are expecting a different kind, and that mismatch is what's breaking everything. The file command just saved you from hours of painful debugging. Okay, so let's level up. Using file for everyday tasks is one thing, but really weaving it into your security and automation strategy, well, that's what separates a good admin from a truly great one.
This is where we stop just reacting to problems and start preventing them. On the security front, you should never run a script you downloaded without first using file to make sure it's actually a script. For system recovery, imagine a crash leaves you with a directory full of files with no names. File is how you figure out what's what. And for automation, you build rock-solid scripts that handle files based on what they are, not what they're called.
And here's what that actually looks like. This simple little loop goes through every file in a directory. For each one, it uses file and then pipes that output to grep to quietly check if the word text is in the description. And only if it's a confirmed text file does it move on to the next step. This is how you build scripts that you can actually trust.
Which brings this whole thing full circle. Remember how I said this command was a career weapon? Well, now we're going to put it to the test and show you exactly how to use this knowledge to land that job. Okay, you're in the hot seat. The hiring manager leans forward and asks you this question. This is your chance to shine, because you're not just going to spit out a textbook definition. You are going to tell a story that proves you know your stuff.
Here is your blueprint for the perfect answer. First, you state the problem, a real-world issue. Then you name your tool, /files*, which shows you know how to use it efficiently. Then comes the discovery. You found out the files were imposters. And finally, and this is the most important part, you state the impact. You didn't just fix a small bug, you single-handedly prevented a potential system-wide outage.
And that's really the crucial point here. An answer like that shows so much more than just technical knowledge. It shows you have a security-first mindset. It shows you're data-driven. You don't guess, you verify. You have a methodical process for solving problems. That is what gets people hired.
So we've seen how this one seemingly simple command is an absolute powerhouse for everything from troubleshooting to security. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. What other simple commands are just sitting there in your toolkit that you might be totally underestimating? What other secret weapons are you waiting to discover?